Stop before you skip this video, because what you're about to hear might be your future speaking to you. Imagine this. You wake up one day. Your hair is gray. Your body feels heavy. The house is quiet. You walk slowly to a mirror, and for a moment, you don't recognize the person staring back at you. And then it hits you. Not fear, not pain, regret. A deep, painful regret that whispers, "What did you do with your life?" You sit down, try to remember all the years that passed, all the dreams you once had, all the plans you promised yourself you would start someday, but something feels wrong, because someday never came. You remember the risks you didn't take, the chances you let go, the passion you slowly ignored just to stay comfortable. And now you would give anything just to go back, just to start, just to try. But you can't, because time doesn't go backwards. And that's when the truth hits the hardest. You didn't lose your life in one moment. You lost it one day at a time. Every time you said, "I'll do it later," every time you chose comfort over courage, every time you ignored that voice inside you that said, "This isn't the life you want," you were slowly walking toward this exact moment. The moment where nothing hurts more than a question. What if I had tried? This is not just a story. This is a warning. Because right now, as you're watching this, you are standing at a point where everything can still change. You still have time. Time to take that risk. Time to follow that dream. Time to become the person you were meant to be. But here's the scary part. Most people watching this will do nothing. They will feel this emotion, this fear, this realization, and then go back to their routine. And years later, they will remember this exact moment and wish they had listened. So ask yourself right now, are you going to be one of those people? Or are you going to be different? Because in this video, I'm going to show you the real stories of men and women who wasted decades of their lives. Not because they failed, but because they never truly lived. And if you don't pay attention, their story will become yours. So don't look away. Watch till the end, because this might be the moment that saves your entire life. At 72 years old, David sat alone on a cold wooden bench, watching the sun slowly disappear beneath the horizon. The sky burned in shades of orange and red, a beautiful ending to another day. But for him, it felt like a painful reminder. His hands trembled slightly as he held on to his walking stick. His eyes weren't focused on the sunset. They were lost somewhere deep in the past. And then, almost in a whisper, he said it, "I wasted it." Those 3 words carried the weight of an entire lifetime. To anyone passing by, David looked peaceful, just another elderly man enjoying a quiet evening. But inside, his heart was heavy with something most people don't notice until it's too late. Regret. Not the kind of regret you feel after making a mistake. Not the kind that fades after a few days. This was deeper. This was the kind that grows silently over years, feeding on missed chances, ignored dreams, and the painful realization that time never comes back. David closed his eyes, and memories began flooding in. He saw his younger self, full of energy, ambition, and hope, a version of him that believed anything was possible. Back then, he had dreams, big ones. He wanted to build something of his own. He imagined starting a small business, traveling to new places, meeting new people, and creating a life that felt exciting and meaningful. He remembered how alive he felt thinking about the future. But then something changed. Life happened. Responsibilities came. Expectations grew. And slowly, almost without noticing, fear started to take control. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What will people think? Those questions became louder than his dreams. So instead of chasing what he wanted, he chose what felt safe, a stable job, a predictable routine, a life that looked good enough from the outside. At first, it didn't feel like a bad decision. In fact, it felt responsible. His parents were proud. Society approved. Everything seemed fine. But deep inside, there was always a small voice quietly asking, is this really the life you wanted? David ignored it, day after day, year after year, because ignoring it was easier than facing it. He told himself he would take risks later. He would follow his passion later. He would start living later. But later has a dangerous habit. It never comes. As the years passed, life became routine. Wake up, go to work, come home tired, repeat. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. And without realizing it, decades slipped through his fingers. There were moments, small ones, when he felt something was missing, like when he saw someone succeed in a business he once dreamed of starting, or when he watched people travel the world while he stayed in the same place, or when he felt a sudden emptiness on a quiet night. But each time, he pushed those feelings away. It's too late now. I have responsibilities. I'll think about it someday. And just like that, another opportunity disappeared. Now, sitting on that bench at 72, David finally understood something he'd been avoiding his entire life. He hadn't failed. He hadn't lost everything. He hadn't even made many big mistakes. But that was the problem. He played it so safe that he never truly lived. Tears slowly filled his eyes, not because of what went wrong, but because of what never even began. He thought about the risks he didn't take, the chances he didn't grab, the dreams he quietly buried, all because he was waiting for the right time. But the truth hit him harder than anything else. There's no perfect time. There's only now. And now, for him, was almost gone. A young couple walked past him, laughing, full of life. David watched them for a moment, a faint smile on his face. He wondered if they knew how precious this moment was, if they understood how quickly time moves, if they would chase their dreams or slowly let them fade away like he did. Because the scariest part of David's story isn't that it's rare, it's that it's common. There are thousands, millions of people living the same life right now. People with dreams they've put on hold. People waiting for the right moment. People choosing comfort over courage, not realizing that every single day they wait, they're slowly giving up a piece of their future. David took a deep breath and looked at the fading sunlight one last time. If he could go back, even just for one day, he wouldn't choose safety. He wouldn't worry about what others think. He wouldn't wait. He would start, because in the end, the greatest pain isn't failure. It's regret. It's waking up one day and realizing that you had the chance to live a different life, but you didn't take it. The sun finally disappeared, leaving behind darkness. David slowly stood up, his body weak, but his thoughts heavier than ever. And as he walked away, one truth echoed in his mind, a truth he wished he had understood much earlier. You don't realize the value of time until you have none left to waste. The tragedy of a wasted life doesn't begin with a single bad decision. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. In his early 20s, David stood at the edge of possibility. The world felt open, full of chances waiting to be taken. He had ideas that kept him awake at night, plans of building something of his own, of breaking free from an ordinary life. There was excitement in his eyes back then, but there was also fear, not loud, paralyzing fear, but a subtle, whispering kind. The kind that says, be careful. Don't risk too much. Play it safe. At first, it sounded like wisdom. His family encouraged stability. His friends were all choosing safe careers. Society praised security over passion. So when David got his first stable job, it felt like he was doing the right thing. I'll just do this for now, he told himself. Just until I'm ready. And that's how it always starts. Just for now. The job wasn't terrible. It paid the bills. It gave him comfort. And slowly, that comfort began to grow on him. Every month, he received a paycheck. Every year, maybe a small raise. His life became predictable. And predictability can be dangerous because it feels safe. And when something feels safe, you stop questioning it. The dreams didn't disappear overnight. They stayed with him, but only as thoughts. Maybe next year I'll start that business. Maybe I'll save more money first. Maybe when things are more stable. But stability has no finish line. There is always something more to secure, more money to save, more reasons to wait. And while he was waiting, time was moving. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Months quietly turned into years. Without realizing it, David entered his 30s. By now, life had become even more structured. Responsibilities increased. Expectations grew heavier. Taking risks didn't just feel scary. It felt irresponsible. He started telling himself a new story. This is what adults do. This is real life. Dreams are for younger people. And just like that, his mindset began to change. The fire inside him didn't go out. It just got buried under routine. Wake up early, rush to work, deal with stress, come home exhausted. Repeat. There was no time left to think about dreams. Or maybe no energy left to chase them. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Sarah was living a similar story. As a young woman, she had a natural gift for art. She could turn a blank canvas into something full of emotion and life. People admired her talent, but admiration doesn't always turn into support. Art isn't practical, they told her. You need a real career. Think about your future. So she listened. She slowly stepped away from painting. Not because she wanted to, but because she felt she had to. At first, it was temporary. I'll come back to it, she said. Just not right now. She took a job, then another. Her life became busy, structured, and predictable, just like David's. Her paintbrushes gathered dust. Her sketchbook stayed closed, and her passion slowly faded into the background. But the most dangerous part of all this wasn't the choices they made. It was how normal everything felt. There was no alarm, no warning sign, no dramatic moment saying, "You're losing your life." Instead, it was comfortable. And comfort can be deceptive, because when you're comfortable, you don't feel the urgency to change. You don't notice the years slipping away. You don't realize that every day you delay your dreams, you make it easier to delay them again tomorrow. David and Sarah both believed they were in control, but in reality, they were drifting. Not forward, not backward, just drifting, like a boat slowly moving away from its destination. Not because of storm, but because no one is steering. There were moments, small flashes of awareness. David felt it when he met an old friend who had taken risks and built something meaningful. For a second, he wondered, what if I had done the same? But the thought didn't last long. Life pulled him back into routine. Sarah felt it when she saw an art exhibition one evening. She stood there, staring at the paintings, feeling something deep inside her awaken, a mix of inspiration and pain. She imagined her own work hanging on those walls. But instead of taking action, she quietly walked away. Maybe in another life, she thought. And that's how the drift continues. Not because people don't have dreams, but because they keep postponing them. They convince themselves there is always time. But time doesn't wait. It moves silently, relentlessly, without asking for permission. By the time David reached his 40s, his life felt fixed. Starting something new seemed impossible. He told himself, "I'm too old to change now." By his 50s, that belief became even stronger. And by his 60s, it became his reality. The same happened to Sarah. The longer she stayed away from her passion, the harder it became to return. Not because she lost her talent, but because she lost her confidence. She began to doubt herself. Am I still good enough? What if I've forgotten everything? What's the point now? And just like that, fear came back, stronger than ever. Not the fear of failure, but the fear of starting too late. This is how decades disappear. Not through one big mistake, but through thousands of small decisions to wait, delay, and stay comfortable. And one day, without warning, you look back and realize that the life you plan to live is still waiting. But you are no longer the same person who dreamed it. And that realization is where the real pain begins. The wake-up call never comes when you expect it. It doesn't arrive with loud warnings or dramatic signs. It comes quietly, often in the most ordinary moments. For David, it happened on a morning that felt just like any other. Except this time, he didn't have to go to work. After more than 40 years of routine, alarms, deadlines, and responsibilities, it was over. He was retired. At first, it felt like freedom. No more stress. No more rushing. No more pressure. People congratulated him. "You're lucky," they said. "Now you can finally enjoy life." And for a few days, he believed them. He slept longer, watched television, took short walks. But something felt off. There was a strange emptiness in his days, a silence he had never experienced before. For the first time in decades, there was no structure holding his life together. And without that structure, he didn't know who he was. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, a question began to grow in his mind. What now? He had spent his entire life working, preparing, waiting for this moment. But now that it had arrived, he realized something terrifying. He had no idea how to live without routine, no passion to chase, no dream to build, no purpose to wake up for. One afternoon, he sat in his living room, staring at the wall. The clock ticked loudly. Every second felt heavier than the last. And that's when it hit him. Not like a sudden shock, but like a slow, crushing realization. He hadn't just retired from his job. He had retired from his life. Tears filled his eyes as memories started replaying in his mind. The business idea he never started. The trips he always postponed. The risks he avoided. All the things he said he would do someday. Someday had come and gone. He whispered to himself, I had so much time. But now, time felt different. It no longer stretched ahead of him. It felt limited, fragile, and for the first time, he truly understood its value. For Sarah, the wake-up call came in a completely different way. It wasn't retirement. It was a simple, unexpected discovery. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning her house, she opened an old box she hadn't touched in years. Inside were pieces of her past. Photographs, letters, small memories she had forgotten. And then she found it, her old sketchbook. For a moment, she just stared at it. Her hands hesitated, as if she was afraid to open it. Slowly, she sat down and turned the first page. And suddenly, she was transported back in time. Every page was filled with life, beautiful drawings, raw emotions, creative energy that felt almost alive. It didn't feel like something she made. It felt like something a completely different person had created. Her eyes widened. Was this really me? She whispered. She kept flipping through the pages, faster now. Each drawing reminded her of who she used to be. Someone passionate. Someone brave enough to express herself. Someone who believed in her own talent. And then the tears came. Not gentle tears, but deep, painful ones. Because in that moment, she realized something she had been avoiding for years. She didn't lose her talent. She abandoned it. All those years she spent working, surviving, doing what was expected, she had quietly let go of the one thing that made her feel alive. She closed the sketchbook and held it tightly. A question echoed in her mind. What if I never stopped? What if she had ignored the doubts? What if she had believed in herself? What if she had chosen passion over practicality? Her heart ached, not because she failed, but because she never gave herself a chance. Both David and Sarah face the same truth, in different ways. A truth that most people avoid until it's too late. Time doesn't just pass, it disappears. And while you're busy living your routine, it's quietly taking your opportunities with it. The wake-up call is painful because it forces you to see your life clearly. No excuses, no distractions, just reality. David saw a life of safety, but no fulfillment. Sarah saw a life of responsibility, but no passion. And both of them realized something that changed everything. They had spent years preparing for a life they never actually lived. This is the moment where regret is born, not from failure, but from awareness. Awareness of what could have been. Awareness of what you didn't do. Awareness that the person you are today is not the person you once dreamed of becoming. David started going for walks every evening after that, not because he enjoyed them, but because he needed to think. And every step felt heavier than the last, because with every step, he was walking through memories of a life that could have been different. Sarah picked up a pencil after that day. Her hands shook, not because she forgot how to draw, but because of the pressure, the fear, the regret. She placed the pencil on paper and paused. Years of doubt, delay, and missed chances were sitting in that moment. She wanted to draw, but a voice inside her whispered, "Is it too late?" And that is the cruelest part of a wake-up call. It doesn't just show you the truth. It makes you question whether you still have time to change it. Because once you see clearly, you can never go back to ignorance. You can no longer pretend everything is fine. You can no longer hide behind routine. You know, and knowing changes everything. For David and Sarah, this was a turning point, not because it fixed their past, but because it forced them to face it. And sometimes, facing the truth is the hardest part of all. Regret is a strange thing. It doesn't show up when you're busy. It doesn't interrupt you while you're distracted. It waits. It waits for silence. It waits for stillness. It waits for the moment when you finally stop and look back. And when it comes, it doesn't knock politely. It hits all at once. David felt it in the quiet of his evenings. Sarah felt it in the pages of her old sketchbook. But their pain carried something powerful. A lesson most people never truly understand until it's too late. The biggest regret in life is not failure. It's not even making the wrong choices. It's never giving yourself the chance to try. Because failure teaches you something. Mistakes shape you. But in action, it leaves you with questions that never go away. What if I had tried? What if I had believed in myself? What if I had started when I had the chance? These questions don't have answers. And that's what makes them so painful. David spent weeks thinking about his life. At first, the regret felt heavy, almost unbearable. He blamed himself. He replayed old decisions. He wished he could go back and change everything. But slowly, something shifted. He realized that while he couldn't change his past, he could still choose how he faced the time he had left. One morning, instead of sitting at home, he did something different, something small but important. He picked up a notebook and wrote down something he hadn't written in decades, an idea. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't detailed, but it was real. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to think beyond routine, to imagine again, to create again. And even though a voice inside him said, "You're too old," another voice, quieter but stronger, said, "Why not now?" That single question changed something inside him. Because the truth is, it's not always about how much time you have left. It's about what you choose to do with it. Sarah faced a similar battle. After finding her sketchbook, she couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. Something inside her had awakened, but along with it came doubt. Years of not practicing. Years of telling herself it wasn't important. Years of putting everything else first. All of it stood in front of her, like a wall. She sat at her table, holding a pencil, staring at a blank page. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Her heart was racing, not because she didn't know how to draw, but because she was afraid. Afraid of failing. Afraid of realizing she had lost her skill. Afraid that it really was too late. But then she remembered something. She wasn't doing this to prove anything to anyone. She wasn't doing it to become famous or successful. She was doing it for herself. For the version of her that once loved drawing. For the part of her she had ignored for so many years. So she took a deep breath and made the first line. It wasn't perfect. In fact, it was shaky and uncertain. But it didn't matter. Because that line wasn't just a drawing. It was a decision to stop waiting, a decision to stop regretting, a decision to finally start. This is the lesson their stories leave behind. Life doesn't waste itself. We waste it when we wait too long to live it. Every day, people delay their dreams, not because they don't care, but because they think there will always be more time to start, more time to improve, more time to take risks. But time doesn't make promises. It keeps moving. And while you're waiting for the right moment, life is quietly passing you by. The truth is simple, but hard to accept. There is no perfect time. There is only the moment you decide to act. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. You don't need to take huge risks immediately, but you do need to start, even if it's small, because small steps taken consistently can change the direction of your entire life. David didn't suddenly become a successful businessman. Sarah didn't become a famous artist overnight. But they did something more important. They stopped living in regret. They stopped letting fear control their decisions. They stopped saying later and started saying now. One day, you will reach a moment just like them, a moment where you pause and look back at your life. And in that moment, nothing else will matter. Not the opinions of others, not the excuses you made, not the fears that held you back. Only one thing will matter. Did you truly live, or did you spend your life waiting to live? The future version of you is watching your choices today. Every delay, every excuse, every moment you choose comfort over growth. And one day, that future version will either thank you or regret you. So if there's something you've been putting off, a dream, a goal, a passion, don't wait. Don't overthink. Don't let fear decide your life, because the cost of waiting is far greater than the risk of trying. David still visits that bench sometimes, but now, when he watches the sunset, he doesn't just see the end of the day. He sees what he still has, a chance, maybe not to change everything, but to change something. And sometimes something is enough, because in the end, life isn't about having no regrets. It's about not letting regret be the reason you never begin. Start now before someday becomes too late.